I want you to just imagine going to bed every single night with like 10,000 people standing shoulder to shoulder in your bedroom.
That sounds absolutely terrifying.
Right. But wait, it gets worse because they aren't just standing there quietly. They are shouting, like literally shouting their greatest life achievements at you through
Oh.
a megaphone.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And while they're doing that, they're simultaneously handing you newspaper clippings
Mm.
of, the world's absolute worst tragedies.
Just a complete sensory overload.
Exactly. You would never sleep. Your brain would just be in this constant state of hyperarousal.
Mm.
And the crazy part is, biologically speaking, that is exactly what happens to our nervous systems when we take our phones to bed.
Yeah, I mean, it is essentially biological sabotage. We're actively exposing our primal brains to a level of social and informational input that we are simply not evolved to process, not even close.
And that striking image brings us right to our mission for this deep dive. Because today, we are tackling a fundamental question that, honestly, every single one of you listening faces on a daily basis. Is social media actually a force for good, or is it fundamentally detrimental to us?
It's the big question, right?
It is. And to figure this out, we are looking at a really specific foundational text today. And we're using this source not because we don't understand the complex tech behind the curtain, but because, well, sometimes we just get so lost in the academic weeds.
Oh, absolutely. The algorithms, the data privacy, antitrust lawsuits, it's endless.
Right. We get so bogged down in all that that we forget the psychological fundamentals. And this source is just a stark mirror. I mean, it really exposes the raw human vulnerabilities that these platforms are interacting with every single day.
And that is a crucial reframing. Because when you're dealing with tools that have become this ubiquitous, I mean, these are platforms we spend hours a day on without a second thought.
Sometimes without even realizing we opened the app.
Exactly. So you actually need to strip away all that industry jargon. You need a baseline text to force a truly objective look at the mechanical psychological architecture of our daily habits.
Okay, let's unpack this, because going back to basics is exactly what we need to cut through the sheer noise of our daily feeds. So the source material begins by establishing what they call the modern public square, which represents the undeniable, good side of this technology.
Yeah, the massive global infrastructure.
Right. We are talking about platforms like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, X, and WhatsApp. And the most immediate impact noted here is just the total collapse of geographical distance.
And we really need to pause and recognize what a profound shift that is for human history. I mean, for thousands of years, geography was an absolute barrier.
If you move, you were just gone.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
If a family member moved across an ocean, they were effectively gone. You relied on asynchronous communication, like letters that took months to arrive.
And by the time you read it, the news was completely stale.
Exactly. But today,
Yeah.
that friction is just entirely gone. You can initiate a high-definition video call with a relative halfway across the globe instantly. The platforms have essentially erased the physical borders of human connection.
It's incredible. But the utility scales so much further than just, maintaining family ties. The source points really heavily to the unprecedented democratization of learning.
Right, the educational aspect.
Yeah. In previous generations, specialized knowledge was heavily gatekept, by institutions or geography or just massive financial barriers.
You had to go to a university or a library.
Exactly. But today, if you want to learn to code, there are thousands of hours of free tutorials. If you need to fix a complex issue with your computer motherboard or, I don't know, even just learn conversational English, the expertise is instantly available. It completely bypasses all those traditional gatekeepers.
What's fascinating here is how social media functions simultaneously on two completely different cognitive and societal levels.
How do you mean?
Well, on one hand, it operates as a micro tool for individual decompression. After a highly taxing day, humans just need a way to downshift their nervous systems.
Right, just zoning out, yeah.
Watching a lighthearted video, listening to music, or just browsing a niche hobby community, it serves as a vital, highly personalized mechanism for stress reduction.
Oh, for sure.
But simultaneously, these exact same platforms function as a massive macro tool for global economics.
Yes. The economic empowerment for small businesses is just staggering. Because historically, like if you were a local artisan or a specialized service provider, you were entirely capped by the foot traffic in your immediate physical neighborhood.
You could only sell to who walked past your window.
Right. And if you sold a highly niche product, you probably went out of business because there just weren't enough local buyers. But now, These platforms allow businesses to hyper-target customers globally.
It's a total game changer.
It really is. A small creator can build a sustainable, entirely remote business by connecting with the exact 1% of the global population that actually wants their specific product.
And, you know, that economic infrastructure is built right on top of what is arguably an even more critical function, which is emergency dissemination.
Oh, right, the crisis management aspect.
Yeah, the source highlights how these networks have essentially replaced traditional broadcasting for emergencies. During severe weather events, traffic hazards, sudden public safety threats. I mean, the speed of information is literally the difference between life and death.
Because it's instantaneous.
Exactly. The peer-to-peer nature of these networks means that life-saving alerts bypass all those bureaucratic delays and they reach the localized population in minutes.
So when you look at all of these functions combined, right, the global communication, the decentralized education, the economic targeting, and the emergency alerts, honestly, I don't even look at it like a tool anymore.
What would you call it?
Social media is essentially a digital Swiss Army knife for modern life. It's your post office, university, storefront, and emergency broadcast system all rolled into one.
A digital Swiss Army knife. That's a really good way to frame it. I mean, it augments almost every aspect of modern human interaction.
And this brings us to a massive, inevitable pivot. Because if this Swiss Army knife is providing everything from our income to life-saving weather alerts,
Yeah.
why does using it often leave us feeling so utterly drained?
Right. Because a tool that demands your attention constantly eventually starts to wear you down. And that transitions us perfectly into the internal psychological impact highlighted by the source. Because this multi-tool, it comes with a severe physiological and cognitive tax.
It really does. And the source zeroes in on exactly how this tax is collected, starting with what I like to call the 5-minute trap.
Oh, yes, we all know this one.
We know the feeling. You sit down on the couch, you tell yourself you're just going to check your notifications for 5 minutes, and suddenly 2 hours have vanished.
Poof, gone.
You're physically in the room with your family or sitting at your desk at work, but you are entirely absent. It damages our real-world obligations. But I want to dig into the mechanics of this with you because this isn't just a lack of personal willpower, is it?
Not at all. Attributing the 5-minute trap to a simple lack of willpower completely ignores the psychological engineering at play here.
Right. The UI designers.
Exactly. UI designers for these platforms utilize something called intermittent variable rewards. It is the exact same behavioral psychology that makes slot machines so addictive.
That is so wild to think about.
But it's true. When you pull to refresh your feed, your brain doesn't know if it's going to see a boring update from a coworker or a highly stimulating, hilarious video.
It's a gamble every single time.
Yes. And that unpredictability. It spikes dopamine production in anticipation of the reward. It completely bypasses your rational time management skills and hooks directly into your primal reward circuitry.
And the frictionless nature of it, like the infinite scroll where there are no natural stopping cues, it just keeps that dopamine loop running indefinitely.
You've never hit the bottom of the page.
Never. Which leads directly into the physiological toll that text brings up. It points to how we take these dopamine-dispensing slot machines to bed with us. And the bright screens emit blue light, which, as we know, actively suppresses melatonin production.
Exactly. It's chronobiological disruption. I mean, your eyes are receiving the light spectrum of a midday sun at 11 o'clock at night.
Which confuses the body completely.
Right. Your brain just halts the chemical processes required for sleep.
So it's essentially self-inflicted jet lag on a nightly basis.
Yeah.
You're forcing your brain into a different time zone, which absolutely ruins your sleep architecture and leaves you completely fatigued the next day.
Exhausted.
And that physical exhaustion pairs terribly with the psychological exhaustion of the highlight reel effect. The source points out that people exclusively post their curated successes, right?
Oh, yeah. The flawless vacations, the new cars, the perfect relationships.
Exactly. We never see the messy, behind-the-scenes struggles.
And the mechanism driving the exhaustion here is a concept known as relative deprivation. You see, human beings determine their social standing and their baseline for happiness by looking at the people around them.
We're social creatures.
Right. So when you compare your complex, difficult reality to a filtered, heavily curated fiction, your brain genuinely perceives that you are failing at life, even if your life is perfectly fine.
But wait, let me push back on this a bit.
Sure.
Because humans have always compared themselves to their neighbors, haven't they? I mean, keeping up with the Joneses isn't a new concept. People a century ago were looking over the fence at their neighbor's new horse or bigger house and feeling inadequate.
That's a fair point.
So Is social media really creating a novel psychological problem here? Or is it just a faster, more intense version of what we've always done?
You are right that the impulse itself is deeply ingrained, but the sheer volume and the velocity fundamentally change the nature of the problem.
How so?
Well, evolutionary anthropologists often point to Dunbar's number. It suggests our brains are wired to maintain stable social relationships within a tribe of about 150 people.
Okay, so a small village.
Exactly. We are built to process the social hierarchy and the successes of a small village. But now, you open your phone and you have millions of global neighbors.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You are subjected to the highlights of billionaires, supermodels, and prodigies 24 hours a day. The sheer unnatural volume of the highlight reel completely overwhelms our psychological defenses. The volume makes the poison.
Okay, the volume makes the poison. Our tribal brains basically short-circuit when we are forced to rank ourselves against the entire globe before we've even had our morning coffee.
I see that. And what the source makes incredibly clear is that this internal friction, the sleep deprivation, the algorithmic dopamine exhaustion, the relative deprivation, it doesn't stay neatly contained in our own heads.
It spills over.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, internal fatigue always dictates external behavior. It inevitably spills out into how we treat others and understand the world at large.
Which brings us to the societal spillover, the external impact. The text outlines how this internal erosion directly harms society at large, focusing on two massive pillars: misinformation and cruelty.
Both hugely impactful.
Let's look at the fake news aspect first. The text highlights that people constantly share false information without verifying it through trusted sources, which creates widespread panic and confusion. But let's look under the hood here. Why does false information spread so much faster than the truth?
Because the architecture of the feed inherently rewards outrage, period.
Just structurally.
Yes, algorithms are designed to maximize engagement metrics, time on site, clicks, shares. And nuanced factual truth is often complex and frankly sometimes boring.
True.
But a sensational, inflammatory headline, that triggers the amygdala. It causes a visceral emotional reaction, usually fear or anger. And when people are afraid or angry, they share.
So it spreads like wildfire.
Right. The platform's algorithm recognizes that high engagement and immediately pushes it to even more feeds.
So the system financially incentivizes the spread of panic.
Precisely. The misinformation networks rely on our speed and our biological reflexes. When one person shares something alarming without verifying it, it creates a wave of societal fear and degrades our shared understanding of reality.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, though. That same algorithmic degradation of how we treat information spills right over into how we treat each other.
The cruelty aspect.
Yeah. The source dives into cyberbullying, noting how people use these networks to spread rumors, leave rude comments, and hurl hateful messages. But the text includes a very sharp reminder. Words typed online cause the exact same neurological pain response as words spoken directly to someone's face.
The brain doesn't know the difference.
Right. So if the text explicitly states that words online hurt just as much as in person, why do you think people feel so much bolder typing hateful things than they would saying them to someone's face?
It comes down to a psychological phenomenon called de-individuation, combined with the total lack of immediate physical consequence.
Okay, break that down for us.
Well, when you look someone in the eye and say something cruel, human biology intervenes. Your mirror neurons fire. You see their facial microexpressions change. You witness their distress.
You actually see the pain you caused.
Exactly. Your brain registers that you have caused pain, which usually triggers empathy or guilt. It acts as a behavioral break. But when you were typing on a keyboard, staring at a piece of unfeeling glass...
Those mirror neurons don't fire.
Exactly. You are completely insulated from the immediate emotional fallout of your cruelty. The digital distance doesn't lessen the real-world emotional pain for the victim, but it removes the friction of human empathy for the aggressor. You feel anonymous, disconnected from the target, making it terrifyingly easy to be vicious without feeling the psychological weight of your actions.
It removes the friction of empathy that perfectly captures the invisible danger the text is trying to expose. So, as we look at the entire board here, we are left with two extreme poles.
Right.
On one side, we have this miraculous digital Swiss Army knife that democratizes education, saves small businesses, and connects families. On the other side, we have an empathy-eroding slot machine that destroys our sleep and monetizes our outrage. How does the source suggest we reconcile this?
By relying on a very grounded central metaphor, the text explicitly compares social media to a physical knife.
Right. A tool that is fundamentally amoral.
Precisely. A physical knife doesn't possess inherent goodness or evil. You can use a chef's knife to chop vegetables and prepare a delicious, nourishing meal for your family. It's an essential tool.
Right.
But if you wield that exact same knife carelessly, you can cause deep, devastating harm to yourself or the people around you. The morality and the outcome rely entirely on the user's intent and boundaries.
And the source doesn't just leave us hanging with a philosophical metaphor, thankfully. It provides an actionable checklist for healthy habits to reclaim control of the knife.
Yeah, the practical advice is really solid.
First, to combat the slot machine dopamine loop, it recommends setting hard daily time limits. Second, actively curating your feed. You have to take the reins of the algorithm by intentionally following positive and educational content, essentially starving the outrage machine.
Give the algorithm better data.
Right. Third, erecting a mental firewall against fake news by refusing to believe or share unverified headlines. And fourth, consciously reminding yourself that the highlight reel is a fiction, which short-circuits that relative deprivation we talked about.
The source also strongly advocates for physical boundaries to protect our biology. It explicitly advises keeping the phone away before bedtime to protect our sleep architecture.
So crucial.
And fundamentally, it urges the reader to prioritize offline time, real physical presence with family and friends, because real life is more important than online life.
Because the real world is where the mirror neurons actually work.
Exactly. This raises an important question, though, regarding how you, the listener, can actively enforce these boundaries in your own life without feeling entirely disconnected from the digital world. The goal of the text isn't to tell you to throw the knife away entirely.
No, because then you lose the Swiss Army knife. You lose the global connection and the learning.
Right. The goal is to learn how to hold it by the handle instead of the blade.
So what does this all mean for our daily routines? I mean, it's a lot like setting a dietary boundary, isn't it?
How so?
Well, you wouldn't eat a whole cake just because it's sitting in the kitchen.
Right. Hopefully not.
So you shouldn't consume unlimited toxic content just because it's easily accessible on your phone.
Yeah.
You have to manufacture the friction that the tech companies deliberately removed.
That is a highly functional strategy. You are engineering your environment to exercise agency over your consumption, rather than letting the frictionless availability of the platform dictate your behavior.
And that encapsulates the ultimate takeaway from our foundational text today. Social media is an awe-inspiring tool. It really is. It allows us to learn, to build businesses, and to connect across oceans. But the user must control the tool, rather than letting the tool control their psychology.
It's a necessary balance.
We have to engage with it purposefully, set our boundaries, and ensure we are leaving plenty of time to experience the very real physical world that is breathing right in front of us.
But as we close out this depth dive, I want to leave you with a final provocation. Something that builds on the text knife analogy, but takes it one step further.
Ooh, okay. Let's hear it.
The source brilliantly compares social media to a knife, which sits passively in a drawer until you choose to pick it up. But think about this. A physical knife in your kitchen doesn't buzz.
Right.
It doesn't ping. It doesn't track your eye movements, analyze your psychological vulnerabilities, and actively send you push notifications demanding your attention when you are trying to ignore it.
Oh, wow.
So if this digital tool has its own financial agenda and is explicitly engineered to pull you back in against your will, does the responsibility for using it safely really fall entirely on you, the user? Or is this knife fundamentally different from any tool humanity has ever built before?
Wow. A knife that actively calls your name from the drawer. That completely changes the dynamic of responsibility. We are going to leave you all to chew on that one. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the underlying mechanics of our digital lives. As always, stay curious, keep questioning the systems built around you, and remember to look up from the screen every once in a while. Catch you next time.